Welcome to Under the Lens. Come and enjoy an extraordinary, raw, and unfiltered podcast that delivers debate, discussions, and interviews about film, pop culture, and everything in between. Here is your host, film critic and journalist, Byron Lafayette.
Hey all, and welcome back to Under the Lens. I am, of course, your host, Byron Lafayette. And I would like to welcome you to this part 2 of the discussion that I had with playwright and director Shem Bitterman. If you remember, in the previous episode, we discussed his latest film, Distant Tales. And now in this episode, as we conclude the Christmas season, we're going to be talking about his work for Hallmark and what it's like to write a Christmas movie for Hallmark, what it's like to create those characters and the themes. And we're also going to talk a little bit about what makes Hallmark so popular, why people like it. It was a really fun conversation. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. And so sit back, relax, and enjoy this part 2 of my interview and discussion with playwright Shem Bitterman.
In our last few minutes, I definitely do have a couple of questions I'd like to ask you, just about, your work in Hallmark and everything. We're in that Christmas season,
I love working with Hallmark. It was wow. Great company, great. I like them. One of the great things about Hallmark, and maybe it isn't even popular to say how kind of cool it is, but I think it is, because I think what Hallmark realized is, people aren't all that bad, so like it's pretty interesting to create a movie where the protagonist or the antagonist is probably, there is no like evil laughing dude, that's like, I'm gonna just destroy the world just because, I'm just in the mood today to do a totally nihilistic thing, and I need a bunch of superheroes to stop me. Because hey, that's just who I am, Sometimes Hollywood will give a nod and they'll go like, this guy is an environmentalist, so he wants to destroy the world to save the world. But then the superheroes are like, nah, that's not going to happen, because we really want to save the world for automobiles. So, we just need more commercial stuff in the world, so we're going to stop you from saving the world for environmental purposes. And also it's a really, really bad idea, because you're going with some like 19th century notion of like, just let's kill off 2/3 of the planet's population in order to save the third. But basically all those bad guys are like, I don't want to say they're cartoon character or cartoon cut-ups or what, but they're always like, they're ridiculously bad, and they have to be to make these ridiculously good people good. Because the superheroes come along and basically destroy everything themselves. Fighting the bad guy. I mean, one of the worst examples of this was Die Hard 3, where they literally take the bad guy down. He's just some poor drug dealer from South America or something. He's coming through an airport and he's gonna like sneak off, and and they're like, oh, we can't let this bad guy escape. We need John McCain or whatever that dude's name was. We got to stop him. And somehow in stopping this drug dealer from escaping justice in South America, or in America, he downs an entire plane of people, like 300, 400 people die. And he's still, at the end of the movie, when he's finally caught the bad guy and killed another 100 or so people, he still has like a kind of a smug Christmas kind of reaction. So you're like, this dude's a sociopath, man. Save me from law enforcement like this. These are the same people that are flying your helicopters over your house at 2 a.m. They to catch some guy with a parking ticket. Happens to be a person of color or something. I mean, it's like nuts. So my point is that Hallmark doesn't trade in that, really. Like Hallmark will build their antagonist out of like a situation, so they're a bit more like It's a Wonderful Life, although It's a Wonderful Life had some greedy bankers or whatever, but it was sort of like the circumstances were like in the piece that I did for them, I talked to my brother, who was a small business owner, and I said, what's a realistic problem that this person could be having in their small business? And he talked about, supply chains and this and that, and it wasn't supply chains, it was some other thing. And like how if you create like a cookie, then your distributor will create an alternative cookie, like Ralph's will create the Ralph's version of Byron's cookie, and then Byron will no longer, will have had his product co-opted. So I mean, in creating the circumstances, it almost becomes like a political statement, like about society. As weird as that sounds, I found that writing into that world was pretty cool. It's cool to write a drama without a snarling bad guy, but where the bad guy is circumstantial, is society is not bad, but it's not easy for people always. And so in the Christmas spirit, then somehow people find, kind of usually in a community, reestablishing a community, they find the sort of togetherness. I mean, I think that's comforting for people to hear that story. So my hat's off to Hallmark, really, in this tough environment, that they found a kind of way of telling stories that is reinforcing. I know there's like other criticisms of, the whiteness of Hallmark or this or that, but it's kind of cool that they've created like a sense that in community, in small town America, there's actually, people can help one another. People can make a difference in one another's lives and make things kind of cool, and telling the stories of how people come to realize that is also, pretty affirming, even if they are using it to sell soap. I mean, it's still pretty cool. I mean, I understand why people go to it. Like, I understand why it's surviving. And I think, like I said, I think it's a really cool thing. I think they know their market, they know their audience, they know what they're doing. Yeah.
No, that's very true. Yeah, because it is very accurate. That like when times are hard, or there's bad things going on in the world or whatever, that it is nice that like you said, you can watch these movies that are kind of about the goodness of humanity, and sharing.
They're a balm to the soul. That's what narrative storytelling can do, and it reminds me of The Great McGinty. You see that with Preston Sturges, where he wants to make a socially hard-hitting movie, and he goes off and he goes and tries to live like a real person, and he finally does accomplish his goal, and he winds up in prison.
Yeah.
And they show one of his old movies, and everybody who's been suffering is laughing their asses off, and he finally realizes, holy shit, what my skill is that I can give these people a moment of joy in their otherwise bleak or hard existence. And that there's more value in that than in telling them that their existence is bleak.
Yeah. No, it is very true, and I think, it's endearing, enduring popularity kind of shows that people want to see that, and they want to see, that goodness and happiness. And I have been happy too, kind of what you were mentioning too, that Hallmark has been pushing, with more diversity lately too. I've been noticing that, and stuff. Yeah. So I think that's a good thing that they're starting to move into that sphere, Yeah,
they don't have to be afraid of that if they are, and I don't know that they are, but I think that they can be a real force for like bringing this country together. They can. I did a lot of work with Humanitas, the Humanitas Prize. I was nominated for a movie of mine, Betty and Coretta, about Coretta Scott King and Betty Shabazz, which was really cool. Angela Bassett and Mary J. Blige were the stars. And
cool.
Humanitas is all about moving the world forward one story at a time. And Hallmark can be a big part of that if it, as they kind of, maybe they're taking up the rear guard a little bit, but in a funny kind of way, they are coming along. I could foresee a time when they'll have gay couple on, a queer couple on.
Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah.
Why not?
Exactly. It's like, having the diversity in there can never hurt your brand. If anything, you're just expanding it. It's like,
people love it.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, because unfortunately, with society, reaction, outrage, stuff like that. People have learned how to make money off of that, and everything, and it's unfortunate.
Well, it's what we were talking about earlier about that fourth piece, or I won't say which piece it is, but the piece in Distant Tales where the guy, there's money to be made in people not being well, and people not being mentally healthy, and people not being physically healthy, and people not taking care of themselves. And obviously we know that if there's money to be made, people are going to find ways to encourage that behavior if they can.
Yeah, it reminds me of it was the last Matrix movie, the Matrix Resurrections, that that the machine character, the incarnation of the machine or whatever, was talking to Neo and them, and he said like, oh, I learned that when we make humans suffer, they produce more energy for us. So he's like, so I created your world to have more angst, so that you were producing more energy. And I laughed, and I was like, that was very clever of them to include that in the movie.
That's pretty funny.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, coming on the podcast and sharing. I really enjoyed our conversation, and really glad that we could kind of do a deep dive, into Hallmark, into your film, Distant Tales. It was really great. I would say, you're always welcome on anytime, you ever have a project you want to promote or anything, drop me a line.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, so before we go, you let our viewers know, if they want to follow your work, is there any special way that they can follow any of your projects coming up?
I don't have any social media handles or anything like that, so they can just keep their eye peeled to great people like you, and just look out for Shem Bitterman, and it's like, oh, there he is flying by. You could go on Google and just be like, oh, look, that guy's got a new project.